Hey, the podcast is ready. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to this very special Thursday because you're getting a Hyper Heroes one day early. You're welcome, Internet, and thank you so much for being here. Very excited about today's show. Before we get into it, I do want to let you know a little bit of housekeeping. After this, we're going to be doing board gaming at 2 o'clock. We're going to be playing Blank Slate. And at 4, it's another episode of Wookiee Quest. That's right. We're going to be throwing Lucas to a new part of LA for a scavenger hunt, which is going to require your help. So you better get in the chat room and you better help that boy find his 5 clues, because if you don't, he's going to fail. And then tomorrow, I'm just going to have to derail his show completely and just throw him somewhere into another city maybe. Who knows what's going to happen? But that'll be happening at 4 o'clock. And then at 6, we're going to be watching Hackers on Hulu. That'll be a whole lot of fun. And then tomorrow, we also have some special guests. We've got Shelby Malone, who's the associate producer on Extraction, joining us for Hypercast. And then tomorrow night, we'll be joined by the stunt coordinator of Extraction, and he'll be doing the watch-along with us. So we're going to get a lot of fun insights and tidbits into the movie that apparently is Banana Sandwich. I have not watched it yet, so you will get to watch me freak out live on camera, and it's probably going to get crazy. So I'm very excited about that. But today is a good day. Not only are we joined by Augustine and Hector, but we've also got a very, very special guest from Star Trek Discovery. Mary Chieffo is here, who plays Laurel on the show. Bring them in. Look at all these gorgeous people. Hot damn. Hot damn. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Thank you to the boys for being here one day early. And thank you, Mary, for being here. So excited to have you on to talk about Star Trek and anything and everything.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I was just saying I'm already a big fan of you guys, so it's fun to get to come on and chat.
Aw, thank you. Well, I have had such it's been a real pleasure getting to know Mary. We met through some mutual friends in the improv Star Trek world, which if you guys haven't seen, the Improvised Generation, they're amazing people.
Amazing.
A bunch of hyper folks. Go see them, go support them. They're awesome. And then Mary and I started chatting because we were following each other on social media, and I was talking about Star Wars, and she was like hitting me up like, we have to talk about Star Wars. And then we became friends, and then invited her and some friends over to watch a Star Wars movie in 3D. Before the quarantine earlier
I
this year.
expect nothing less from you, Hector.
It was like one of the last times I hung out with people before quarantine. It was
truly.
Really?
Yeah.
It was great. And then like a week after that, Mary went on a Star Trek cruise. You know, as things were building up to where the world was like, is this a thing?
Yeah.
Mary had this amazing experience and was partying on a boat. Came back and everyone was like, okay, now lockdown.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, literally like 3 days after we got back, it was like, and everything's done.
Wow.
But
were you able to escape it though during those days that you were on the, did you hear anything about it while you were on there?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I say it was the perfect balance because everyone was really trying to be diligent about washing their hands, and we were generally trying to uphold the kind of elbow, not shaking sort of stuff. So I felt like in coming back, once everything really did crash down, we were like, well, at least we weren't complete fools. But it was still, we were aware, you know, it's like you try not to be on your phone as much, but you could definitely feel that something was shifting, and really glad that we made it back, that we got to travel without too much madness, and that we weren't stuck on the boat for another month.
But the best thing about being friends with Mary is that, you know, I'm already a Trekkie. I'm already a fan of the show. I'm already a fan of her performance and her character. And then as soon as I got to know Mary, I realized she's a straight up nerd. And we've had some great, deep conversations about storytelling and myth making and the the really, really great stuff that I think Mary, as an actor, as a brilliant actor, you know, as a Shakespeare nerd and lover, like you're bringing that to it while also having those deep conversations about things like Star Wars and superheroes and things that normally don't explore that stuff, at least up front, but really they do. And that's what we love. That's what we love.
That's why we love it. We love it.
Yeah. So I just, I know part of the promise for Mary was that for coming onto the show today, I was like, and I promise we'll get to talk about Kylo Ren, and we will. It's not just going to be just Star Trek questions. It'll be a bunch of stuff.
Well,
but,
I think like
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I've loved about us being able to do these interviews and talk to so many people in our industry is like, of course we want to talk about the thing that like, you know, you're actively doing and working on and your most recent projects and stuff. But I think it's like, I think for us and for the audience, it's really cool to just get insight into the person, you know, what are your interests outside of things like Star Trek and Star Wars, you know, like, especially right now with everything that's happening, just how are you holding up? How has life been? How has the adjustment been to working from home? You know, like all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have felt, once I got back from the cruise, I was so exhausted because I had actually just come from, I had been in New York for almost a month. I was directing a friend in a play for the Frigid Festival, kind of off Broadway festival. It was a new piece called Closed Circuit. It's 3 characters, interlocking monologues. So I've been really wanting to expand more into directing. As Hector noted, I do have a very kind of large picture storytelling directorial mind, which serves me a lot in my acting. And of course, when I play these larger characters, just understanding the capacity of them, that really helps. But beyond that, I was like, I think I don't want to just think I could be a good director. I want to find out what I'm capable of. And my best friend from high school, Remington Moses, excellent name.
Wow, I love that name.
Yes, yeah.
Great.
We were in International Thespian Society together. We were co-presidents in our senior year, did all those shows together. But she thought of me. She was part of this project, and it was really wonderful. I got to work with with her and these 2 other wonderful actors who I hadn't met before, help them develop the piece. But anyway, I'd been doing that, basically got home for like 4 days, then went off to the cruise. So when I first got back, I just wanted to sleep. Like I was ready to be quarantined. Like I was going to do that no matter what.
Yeah.
So it took me like about 2 weeks to get back and to a rhythm. But then I kind of hit the ground running. I'm so grateful. I'm surrounded by so many amazing artists a lot of friends who are like, you know what? I've always wanted to read this pilot I wrote, or I'm part of this wonderful group of Bespoke Plays. I did a reading of Christine Boylan, who's one of the co-producers of the group, along with Ellie Pyle. I did a reading of theirs in October, Analog, which honestly is just an awesome dystopian sci-fi. I'm like an engineer and my AI, it's awesome. Christine is an amazing writer. So I'm kind of obsessed with that group, and they've been having weekly readings on Sunday of new works. So I've been just kind of volunteering as an actor there. I'm back at Impro in their character core class, the next class that I would take. I took an interesting self-tape class, which was really interesting at BGB Studio, and really actually
from home. You're doing all of the stuff you're describing just now from home.
All from home, all on Zoom, pretty much, which is wild. Yeah. And it's been really cool because we are recalibrating to this new way of being, and like obviously. It's something that's not completely unfamiliar to us, but it's kind of the recalibration, and certainly the self-tape one was very interesting. Part of why I signed up is that's become more and more commonplace for auditions. And then also looking at what it's going to be like. Maybe there will be Zoom sort of live auditions where you can get adjustments there. And like, what does that mean to be set up just like this, but come in and like present and be present with my reader, who now I am seeing through a screen. Yeah. And it's just a real, shift. And I'm really grateful to Teresa and BGB that they're really embracing that and doing a lot of talks and classes related to that. So that's very comforting to feel that sense of community, both within the acting community and the casting director community, that we're all really coming together. And there are all these challenges going on, monologue challenges and stuff. I participated in their monologue challenge, and I did some Shakespeare. I did a production of Macbeth my fourth year at Juilliard, an all-female version. And I kind of, with the thing with Shakespeare is you're never done. And so it's like, and I got to play Macbeth, and there's just so much to pine out of that character. And so I've had different ideas of how to reinterpret the character. So I was like, okay, well, I'm here in quarantine. Let me do this crazy, I want to do like a Mad Max Macbeth, that's kind of in this
I'm into
dystopian
that.
future landscape that's like
yeah.
and that you can play with gender and kind of that there's it actually kind of harkens back to the kind of Scotland that it's originally set in, but with the tribes and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, so I was like, let's just lean into that. So I did that. And then I've just been, and doing stuff like this. I've really appreciated even doing Instagram lives, and I just got a cameo. Like, I'm really moved by how much being present with people in this time can really help. So I'm just trying to do what I can to be that. And it really is, I know it makes other people happy, but it also is really fulfilling for me and heartening. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That sounds awesome.
I mean, I think that's like one of the big things that we always talk about, whether it's amongst ourselves or even to our audience. We talk a lot about sometimes it's hard to stay motivated and to stay productive during these sorts of times because you're so kind of wrapped up in your own life, your personal life, because you're with your family or, whoever you're with all the time now. And on top of that, sometimes when you just open Twitter, you feel a little bit, it's a little I don't know. It's hard to stay motivated when you open Twitter and you're like, boy.
Adam, if I may, I think the words you're looking for are fucking depressing.
Yeah.
To
put it bluntly,
Just
So I think it's become it's become a challenge for certain people to just kind of stay motivated all the time. And I think it's amazing when people can find a system that really works for them, that kind of keeps them and not to completely tune out what's happening. Because I think it is really important for everybody to keep kind of their ear to the ground to know exactly what's happening and how we're kind of going through these phases of what's happening. But I think it is important for everyone to sustain some sort of a schedule and some sort of drive and motivation and to have a regimen that really works for them to kind of get through all of this stuff. So I think it's awesome to hear that, you've really found a balance and have really found a way to stay motivated through all that, because I know it's really hard right now.
Yeah.
It definitely
one thing
is.
that I took from what you said was that there's a recalibration happening. And that's kind of goes off of a conversation we were having last week about how do we continue from this point, specifically in acting and in Hollywood and things like that. And it makes me happy to hear that people are adapting and recalibrating just like everybody else is, but specifically in something that, for us, it's what we love. We talk about all this nerdy, cool movies, comic books, and all this stuff. So the things we love will thrive and they will continue. Yeah, but it's just things just need to adapt. And I'm glad to hear that, because last week we were just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know.
And what's neat is that I don't know. I think what I'm hearing more and more is people are living in the unknown in a new way because they have to. And I think it is bridging gaps, and it is bringing people together, and it is equalizing. And I think this lo-fi world is bringing us back to the work and bringing us back to human connection. Ironically, I think obviously when something that we take for granted gets taken away from us, we are suddenly confronted with how much we rely on it. But it's fun. And particularly my improv class, we've been playing too with just how can you use Zoom? How can me being right here feel different from me being over here? That's a whole story. So it's what I'm seeing more is that we're being innovative. And I'm actually also directing a Zoom. My friend Remy again asked me to direct her and her friend in
Remington. What's her last name?
Moses.
That's right. Remington Moses.
Right?
If that character name doesn't end up in a movie somewhere, we're missing out on something good.
Spy,
exactly.
Right? She's a spy.
Yeah, she is a spy.
She's an eternal intergalactic being, right?
Yes. That is her big secret. But yeah, she's really just terrific, and it's been so fun. I'm now directing her in this other piece just to be on that other side, and I I've always loved her work and being able to encourage her, and it's been so helpful to me as I continue to work on my acting to realize, I don't trust myself, but stuff is happening. When you have those conversations between rehearsals and stuff, really realizing how much we just can keep growing as artists together is really great. But it's cool in this Zoom where I'm now trying to figure out how dynamically can we have this two-hander play and not go overboard, but how can we have moments where someone's hands here or that there's an exchange? And so, yeah, I mean, why not embrace it? Let our limitations liberate us.
Yeah,
I dig
for
it.
sure.
I like it.
I also feel like everyone's starting to slowly become tech wizards at this stuff.
Yeah.
Which makes it for us easier because I emailed you and I was like, all right, so I always get worried because I'm like, I hope everybody like has this stuff at home. I'm like, Ethernet cable, a headset, and you're like, oh, I think I should be able to get this set up. And then you zoomed in. I was like, oh, she's got this. She's totally got this. Perfect, perfect, nailed it, crushing it.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Mary. We are talking about how, with everything going on, I think it's getting everybody to refocus and get back to the work. A part of that too is like, are you doing any in your free time? Because you seem like you're a very motivated person and you're doing a ton of stuff in your sort of
for better or for worse,
professional and work life. And if in any downtime you have time, are you using that time to like go back and watch movies and TV? And are you reading anything? What are you doing to kind of fill that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually, this past week was kind of marathon week. Like it was probably the most I'll ever want to do in 1 week during quarantine. So I've been trying to kind of like ease out of that and am trying in the next few weeks to kind of disperse my time better. So in that first weekend I was back, I did start watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I had not seen yet, which was the perfect, delightful thing during the midst of like, is the world ending, to be like, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
But I haven't finished that, but I'm glad. I'm also very much, aside from like sci-fi and fantasy, worlds of saturated color, everything from like Pushing Daisies, Amelie, like that's definitely Jane the Virgin, like magical realism. So any shows like that are on my list. I have such a long list, it's ridiculous. But
have you seen the movie? Have you seen the movie The Fall with Lee Pace?
Yes.
It's gorgeous. Talking about saturated.
Gorgeous.
Because you mentioned Pushing Daisies, so Lee Pace is in that. But like that movie, The Fall, from the director of The Cell, that movie is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen.
That that came out of when I was Pushing Daisies was like a huge lifesaver for me. It like was this beacon of light and hope for me in a lot of dark times. And so I was telling someone how much I loved it and loved Lee Pace, and they were like, well, have you seen The Fall? And so then I did, and I was like, oh my God, this is everything. And he's just I love watching him as an actor. And and he's so transformative, obviously, in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I mean, he really, he's just one of my big inspirations.
I love him I know Augustine is a huge Lord of the Rings guy. And I just watched all the Hobbits like in the past few weeks, and I love him as Legolas's father. Lee Pace as that elf. Yeah, he has such an energy,
a majesty,
a majesty. That's right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, really awesome.
So but you did Miss Maisel. What else?
I did that. I haven't been. What's been great is I've been reading all of these new plays or, a lot of new stuff. So I do feel like I've been being exposed to a lot of exciting new things, but mainly through readings. I did on Alien Day rewatch Aliens because it's great.
Yes.
Because I could not. But honestly, that is actually a big goal for me in the next few months, is to get back to watching more stuff, because I do believe that is just as important as creating the work. And I tend to lean towards doing more than watching. And I always try and anchor myself back and like, just take the time. Like I get in my head, I'm like, no, you got to be doing this other thing. It's like, no, Mary, just enjoy something. So that's definitely a big goal for me, is to get back to some stuff. But I'm trying to think, other than that, I mean, I've been trying to just, participate more in watching like webinars and discussions and things like that. But other than that, I need to get back to watching more things and reading more things.
Well, no, that kind of sounds like you're busy 100% of the time. Yeah. If I did any of that stuff, I would be exhausted.
Yeah. I think that's been part of like the fun thing of the one positive thing I would say about that's come out of all this is I've also discovered that, wow, there's a lot of stuff out there that I have never seen that I've always wanted to. And because I'm the same like you, constantly being like, I don't have the time. I got to work and work and work and work and work. Yeah. And now we've been doing a movie a night, and I'm like, there's so much amazing things that I have not put any attention towards that. I'm so glad I am, because you're right. I think it really starts to ignite a lot of that creative spark that maybe you thought you were using but weren't using it to its fullest potential, and it starts to really start like snowballing all these great ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
It also sounds to me like Mary is a very hard worker, and we really should thank her for slumming it with us for an hour.
I know, right?
Really, because you could be watching a webinar, you could be reading a play. Cheers to that, Mary. Thank you.
Well, this is what I love. This is human connection and talking about ideas and hearing what you love. I mean, that's, to me, I just think is so important, because then a seed of a conversation also is a way of being inspired to tell more stories and stuff like that. And I always love to say yes to this sort of stuff, because you never know what you're going to learn. And particularly because I was saying earlier, what did I call you guys? I said positivity with intelligence.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyone who's positive with intelligence, I wanna hang out. I think we can do something good together.
Awesome. Somebody clip that, share it all over the internet.
Make a GIF immediately.
Yeah,
amazing. Adam, do you want to ask Mary? We got a question from a fan, one of our loyal viewers, and then go into the thing that you wanted to show.
Absolutely. So our good hyper homie Kurt Kost asked us a question, which was, how long did it take to get all of your makeup on, and was it fun? When I was he mentions, when I was a kid, I was a huge Star Trek fan, and his favorite character was Captain Kirk growing up. So I ended up I found this video of you getting made up as your character Laurel, and it was intense. I would love for you to we're going to play the video so everybody can see it, but I would love for you to kind of talk through the process of, how long, and all those details that I think, like, I was fascinated when I watched this video, because it seems very intense.
Yes. So it usually takes about there she is, before and after. And this one, I think, this might have been the day where the full body one.
Wow.
That one was like over 4 hours.
Holy moly.
Wow.
Yeah. And but usually we got it down to about 2.5 hours. And for that level of makeup is actually quite efficient. But with TV, you can't take 10 hours to apply a makeup. You've got to get going. So how would I describe, like, a typical day? If I'm working on a Monday and I'm the first shot of the day, I usually have a 3:42 a.m. pickup.
Oh my Lord.
What? 3:42?
Yeah. On the dot. And it's basically a 3-hour pre-call, because they allow a little travel time and then to get on set and have a little breakfast. And I love this video. They've got a lot of great parallel shots. Well done, StarTrek.com. They're doing an amazing job. Their whole team, that Yasmin, they're really, really awesome, and they're all passionate about the shows. But yeah, so I would get to set, then I first have to get my bald cap. So I go to the makeup trailer for that, where they would braid my hair into a very tight, like, French braid, put the bald cap on. Then I would put the bald cap on. Then, as you can kind of see in that video, there's this first big cowl that's kind of usually either just the chest, like either the chest up or the neck up, depending on the costume for that day. Put that on, so then you kind of look like a weird knight in shining armor, with my head poking out. And I always forget the names of the different types of glues, but this is a certain type of glue that is easier to take off at the end of the day, around the chest, and it doesn't have to stick quite as meticulously as on the face. So they get that on there, and then depending on, we ended up with about 4 different Laurel faces by the end of the second season. We had like Laurel 1.0, Laurel 1.5, Laurel 2.0. So usually it was about 3 or 4 pieces with the face. There's usually like the ridge around here, and then you have the lips, sometimes 2 separate lips and a chin. And then they use stipple and they blend, and they one term that they use is like burning the edges. which is basically really blending the edges. And then from that, a lot of it is pre-painted, and they use 3D printing technology. Alchemy Studios, it's incredible. They have a relationship with a 3D printing company. And so a lot of the nuance within the skin is already there. But then they still blend, and they paint around my eyes. And I did get a little bit more glam around the eyes in the second season. Fine. Got a little mascara and shadow and stuff, and a little lipstick. Like yeah, that was kind of the shot that that was when I was like full glam warrior. But so that's usually like the bulk of the like last hour is kind of that. And then we have the spray, the why can't I think of the word? Like for spray tan, airbrush. Thank you. I always forget it. Like airbrush with a few different like purples and blues and browns. James McKinnon, who's our department head, who's incredible. Emmy award-winning James McKinnon. They won for second season. That's awesome. For Discovery. And he worked on Deep Space Nine and Voyager and the 2009 film. So he's really well versed in prosthetics in the Star Trek world, and he's also the department head now for Picard. And
would he tell you, as with his experience, would he tell you how much things have changed from when he started, or are they kind of still the same from like those older Trek shows? And
actually a lot has changed. Just the biggest shift is to silicone. Discovery is the first show that uses silicone primarily.
As opposed to, was it latex before? Was that what it was?
Yeah, the plant-based sort of. And actually, over the summer last year at Comic-Con, my dear friend now, Bree, she made me into a Powan from Star Wars. And that we used the latex for that. And it was the first time I was exposed to anything other than silicone. For the actor, it's a little more breathable, but you don't get the same level of nuance and expression, or in just like the camera picks up that silicone just gives it like a skin-like quality and a depth. And you really saw that in the second season with the Telosians, like the way that they could get that almost translucent. It's really amazing.
I think that was the most impressive thing about watching, the side-by-side in the clips, because you look at it and there was a part of me before I had seen the transformation video of like, is there like little animatronics in there and they're doing a little bit of like remote control work? But no, it's like, it's just makeup, but it's like,
it comes to
amazing.
It's also amazing that not just for your character, for Laurel, but for so many other performers, even for like Doug Jones, who I know what Doug Jones' face looks like.
Yeah.
And to see him transition into Saru, and with your character, Mary, it's like, I can look at Laurel and I go, that looks nothing like Mary. And yet, there's something
kinda
in there about
it
still kind of does. And when you're performing, I'm like, I can see that humanity in that performance.
It's the eyes, Hector. They're the window to the soul, Hector.
Even with like the big contacts that you're wearing, you're totally right, Augustine. That's what it's amazing.
Yeah.
I will say that the eyes, once I realized pretty early on, it's funny because I do have like big eyeballs, but I had never really thought about it too much until I was like, this is what I've got. And I would I had some time to look in the mirror, and as we would film, like there was a lot, particularly near the beginning too, because we were able, the mask did get thinner, or it's not, sorry, James would kill me. It's not a mask, it's a prosthetic. A mask is what the background actors wear that is just, you pull it over. A prosthetic is the thing that is specifically glued. So, and I always reference how I did a lot of mask work in school and that helped me, but that's a different type of mask. Anyway. Okay. Love you, James. I always really want to, give that whole team so much love because they are there day in, day out. I have a few days here and there, but they are constantly working these long hours and making sure everyone's faces are not falling off. So kudos to them.
Because it's not just you, right? It's 1,000 other people that have to do.
Yeah. And on certain days, some days they are often 2 units going on because they overlap episodes. So, they might have, second units got a whole bunch of background Klingons or Kelpians or something, and then on main unit you've got me. It's it just varies from day to day. But the whole team, Hugo and Rocky, James's team, it was just I adore them.
They're amazing, and both seasons of Star Trek Discovery are on CBS All Access. But that's another reason I do love. Like, I watched the show, but I was like, but even when the show comes out on Blu-ray, you get it because there's over 4 hours of special that's what I love about the physical media, is that I'm watching all that stuff and you really do gain that appreciation. I remember you mentioned earlier, Mary, that like 3D printing was a big part of the makeup department, but also the props and stuff and the costuming. And when you see some of those ornate Klingon, attire, especially when your characters are introduced kind of at the beginning of season 1 with everything, and then you learn and see that they're using new 3D printing technology that had never been used on because it wasn't around in 20 years ago and stuff. It's so impressive and so amazing. So if anybody's watching now and hasn't had a chance to watch the show, but also hunt down some of those behind the scenes featurettes and everything. So
and they are posting a lot of really fun stuff on StarTrek.com. I have a whole thing where I teach some Klingon how to say Judgvam, which is really fun. I did want to touch on the eyes to the window of the soul, though. I really found, I was saying earlier about limitations liberating us, that was the gift of this role, was that like I had the eyes, I knew I had the nuance of the head, and certainly in the first season I leaned on that a lot. There's like a serpentine, reptilian, also kind of feline quality that was really helpful, and they are a very sensual species, or they have the potential to be, and obviously we've seen the women portrayed in various ways in that regard, and I wanted to kind of recalibrate that and like saying earlier, just kind of being like, what does that really mean, and how does that really what does that really say about the character? But I did find that in these moments where the lighting is great and you get it in the eyes, and having it be lighter too really did help. And I mean, it was so fun to play with. Even though it's like I could never smile like this, but I had to let that happen up here. So it was a really great lesson as an actor about different ways to.
I have a question. How much how much of the character do you feel helps you how much of the makeup helps you portray the character? Right? Do you feel like it's already in you, or do you feel like when the makeup is on now you're like the Klingon?
Yeah, I mean, she's always a part of me. And something I say about all my characters is that their heart and their soul is very akin to mine, but their external circumstances are what shape them to behave differently. Like, I don't want to come from a place of like her and me. And so I have that, and I definitely in reading the script or all that sort of stuff, but certainly when it comes to how she carries herself, definitely the days where I'm actually in it. And actually Alana, who is our contact lens tech, so she's the one that actually puts the contacts in my eyes and keeps them moist. And even though I wear contacts normally, so I actually had the least amount of issues with them, it's still painted, so it's thicker, and you just have to keep them more moisturized. And it's the last thing they put in. You have rehearsal, all that sort of stuff, and then put it in so that you can only have 8 hours or whatever.
Extend your time.
So I would always be like pretty much in full costume, sit down, she'd put it in, we do the little thing, and I'd look in the mirror and we go, there she is. And it really was, and I get the teeth in there, and the armor in the first season, and the various outfits. Like, I am a very kinesthetic person and very visceral, and I found that that really did teach me a lot about how she carried herself. And she is far more reserved than I as a being. She's got all of this going on underneath, but she is much more stoic, and comes from a place of not giant spoilers for those who haven't watched, but she does have a journey of seeing herself as someone who lives in the shadows, who is a no one, and has to ascend into her power, which resonated a lot with me. But as someone who doesn't think of herself as a leader outright, I felt like that really informed how she carried herself. So it's a real mixture, but I really do love working outside in and inside out. I didn't want the audience to be looking at an actor struggling. I wanted them to see a character, like, if this is how I move, this is the amount of movement I get, then this is going to be who the character is. Like, I don't want to be like, guys, this is frustrating, because that's not the character. So I really did try and embrace that as much as I could.
And because Star Trek has such a vast history, obviously, how difficult or how easy or difficult was it having so much, and I know the timelines are different, but regardless of the fact, you're playing a species that's already been established in the Star Trek canon. How difficult is that, or how challenging is that, or how freeing is that to have things you can reference, whether it's, previous movies or episodes, and not even necessarily just characters that are of the same species, but just Star Trek lore in general to help sort of like influence potentially what you want to do with the character.
Absolutely. Well, I did. I'm definitely a nerdy, geeky girl. So once I got cast, I said, I'm going to watch every episode of every. And then I was like, okay, that's a lot. And at the time, I thought I only had about a month, and I was like, okay, we've got to at least strip this down a little bit. But I did. I went on the Wiki page and I found, they have every Klingon episode, every Klingon featured episode. Like, even if it's just for a second, a Klingon appears, that episode is listed. And so I did. I will say, I'm proud to say, I have watched every Klingon-centric episode in all of Star Trek canon.
I'm sure that's still a long list.
It is, particularly Deep Space Nine. I mean, we just go, full throttle.
Guys, Worf is in a lot of them.
Yeah. There's a lot of Worf. Bless Worf. But I really. I also, and I think coming from like my Shakespeare training and all that, I like researching. I like over researching and then letting go. And I wanted to be as informed as possible. It's like, it's what came before, even though timeline wise, I'm what came before. But I wanted to make sure that was really how I thought of it. And I did have a special eye on the female Klingons because I wanted to see how they existed in their society. And there's a lot there about, it is still very patriarchal. And I reference often Grilka in Deep Space Nine and having to marry Quark in order to like keep her house, like, ultimately it works out otherwise, but that they're coming from this society that views women differently, even though from the outside, Klingon women are terrifying to the Federation, but within their own society, they still have a particular position. So that was a big thing I took away. Also, when it came to the language, we were the first series that really had full dialogue scenes in Klingon and wanted to add that level of nuance in the expression of the language. We have our translator, Robin Stewart, who is a fluent Klingon speaker, and then our dialect coach, Ria Nolan, who would be our liaison on set. We'd have back translations and really just trying to see how that shaped Laurel's then English accent. What I really wanted to find with that was looking at the Klingons in the future who have a kind of Shakespearean sort of grandiose way of speaking, but thinking about, okay, these Klingons haven't really been exposed to the Federation or other English-speaking, cultures in about 100 years. The way in which the language lives, it is very back of the throat, a lot of guttural glottal stops, and in the Klingon dictionary there are a specific for each vowel there's only one sound, as opposed to in English we have like a myriad of sounds for particular vowels. And so Ria and I, episode 5 is where I speak English for the first time. We made basically like a dialect sheet that you would normally make if you were doing an Irish accent or something like that, but based off of the sounds that the Klingons made. And so I didn't want someone to be like, what is she doing? She's just doing some weird like Russian meets like, I don't even know what. And I was like, it's actually completely based on the sounds that Klingons have. And we kept playing with it. And I also played with the fact, like, so Laurel is fluent because she's very, very smart and capable. She's also an extremely good listener and observer. And so as the series progressed and she was exposed to more, English speakers, I wanted her accent to just kind of relax a bit. And so certainly, end of first season into second season, I wanted to just play, and also didn't want to be so over, crazy about it. I wanted to just trust. And now I will say that, like, if I just think of myself as Laurel, that kind of accent just starts to come out It's a lower register. I would warm up my lower register, and they would add a little bit of a reverb for certain things. But other than that, that is like my voice that you're hearing. So, I mean, that was a big thing. And I wanted, pay homage to what had come before, and make it feel logical that this Klingon could exist. And then, 10 years from now or 100 years, because so much of we learn about the Klingons is, TNG era. So that's a holder. The post-Praxis explosion Klingon Empire, which is a big difference. I always like to think about that, but yeah. So yes, so I really did want to know what we were deriving from.
That's amazing.
Feel very informed.
That's so much detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I think that's how you craft a really great performance. Is you get just 100% invested into it, and I think like that gets translated through the screen to the audience, and it like that resonates with people when you have someone who's so dedicated. I think it's like really important, especially when it's these big franchises that are so beloved by millions of people. I think when you meet someone or you see someone doing that, it gives you a whole new appreciation for not just Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever property, but also the character itself, and then like the craftsmanship that is being put into the show.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything away again, because I know there are people that haven't seen the show yet. But
there's so much to give away with Laurel.
I know. That's what I'm gonna say, is that just in those 2 seasons, she has such an incredible like story arc, and that character goes through so much. And she ends up, I mean, she starts as a very compelling character, but by the end of these first 2 seasons, she is so I think she's one of the most interesting and dynamic female characters in Star Trek, period. Because and especially because everything you were mentioning about how your deep dives and you're like, okay, how does the Klingon Empire, what's the dynamic between men and women within that world? She goes through so much of that, and what she goes through is also, just like any great sci-fi, is such a great metaphor for what we're experiencing in the world today, for how the genders are operating and the types of things that women have to deal with in the workplace. Like she's literally going through that. So all of that stuff is there. It's great. Again, if people watching right now haven't seen it, and you don't have to be a Trekkie, I think the show is such a great jumping on point for it. It's just such a great balance of everything you just described, Mary. There's so much attention to detail about the whole of the 50 plus year Star Trek, but then there's so much like, well, what can we do different? Like again, at the macro level, at the micro level, like even the whole premise of the show. Well, there's so much we're going to keep true to Star Trek. And now what if we say that Spock had a sister nobody knew about? And it's such a mind blowing, and it all fits and it all works in the continuity, and it even enhances some stuff that you can go back and watch Leonard Nimoy do after the fact of like, oh, dang, if you pretend he's, shit. It's really, really cool. So I wanted to ask Mary, because you are such a fan of different things and you're a geek. Let's talk Star Wars for a second. Firstly, how can Star Trek and Star Wars be compared? If you want to mention maybe how you kind of got into each one, and how can they not be compared?
Okay, great. I love it. Where do I start? When it comes to Star Trek and Star Wars, I'm definitely of the we can love both camp, obviously. That goes without saying. But a fun thing that I've always felt, and I recently, I think a few months ago on Twitter, our dear friend Amanda Troop expressed that they can exist in the same timeline, that Star Wars takes place in the way past and Star Trek takes place in the way future. So I even make a joke that like Laurel watches Star Wars. Like,
yes.
I'm like, why not? Why not?
Why
It
not?
could be, in syndication in space. Who's to say? That's how she learned English, watching Star Wars. But I do.
She's watching and she's like, the Holdo maneuver.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, she would love Holdo. Yeah, for sure. Definitely get some aesthetic choices from her. But beyond that, I mean, I think when it comes to storytelling, I mean, obviously with Star Wars, there was so much inspiration from Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, which I love. I grew up on mythology, as we've talked about, Greek myths, Norse myths, whatever myth. I was into it. And of course, I also was very into Chronicles of Narnia and Harry Potter and just these heroes' journeys type stories. And I did, we were talking the other day, my intro to Star Wars was a little bit later. Ironically, when it was first introduced to me, I liked the story, but I got queasy over some of the prosthetics.
They traumatized you, like they grossed you out.
There's something, I have it with ET too. It's not specifically Star Wars. Some of that time period prosthetic, something about it kind of just gave me the willies. And so I had to get over that. Once I got over that, I mean, I was, too young. I knew I liked the idea of it, but I just was like, oh, those aliens are a lot. Oh, the irony. But then once I did come back to it, and I really got back into it when the new films were going to come out. Basically, once Force Awakens was announced, and leading up to that, I did a lot of rewatches and kind of really got back into it, and then really got into it actually with these new films, and the new level of representation, and my boy Kylo. We'll get to him later. But I will talk to that because the mythology of that is part of what really hunkered me in or just like grounded me in the story in a new way. But well, you know what? Why don't I the thoughts in my head. So before I forget it, the thing about Kylo Ren, and it's not going to be my whole thesis on Kylo Ren. I'm sure I'll write that someday. But for me, as I've continued to think about it, because I had a lot of emotions after the recent events with Kylo, or I should call him Ben, because my shirt that I have says Save Ben Solo. And I think for me, obviously with a character like Laurel and a lot of characters I gravitate towards, they do have a darkness to them. And I think from the get-go, when you see this person with this mask and then he takes off his mask and he's this young boy, I think I remember getting chills, and partly because I related to it, because even though I think I'm the inverse of that in life, as I try and be this like positive force, like I want to be like Rey, but I think when I'm with myself, I feel like Kylo. I feel conflicted. I feel that there is a darkness about me, and it's like I think he has a shame about it, which is why he behaves the way he does. And then obviously I'm lucky that I grew up in environments that kind of were positive and encouraging enough that I could kind of healthfully observe that, but still move towards the light. But I think unfortunately for him, he had the wrong guidance. And for me, that's what I was always rooting for. We're talking about this YouTube video that Hector posted. And I will say, if you watch this video, that's a really good kind of visual explanation of what I was rooting for the whole time with this character.
Let me describe this video for a second. It's a video I found on YouTube. Immediately sent it to Mary, texted her. I'm like, you got to watch this. I sent it to her at like 12 o'clock at night. Like, sorry to wake you up. And it's one of those great, there's so many great like edited videos on YouTube where people explore different fandoms and they do cool editing, and it's really nice, right? It's just it's footage of the Kylo Ren character that we've seen in the 3 movies. But my favorite part is it's a great 7-minute thing, and it starts and it ends. Is that at one point they cut back and forth between Emperor or Supreme Leader Snoke saying like he turns towards his enemy and then he ignites his lightsaber and strikes down his true enemy. That moment in the throne room, and it's cutting back and forth between him saying that, and it cuts to Kylo when it says, and then he strikes down his true enemy. It cuts to Kylo throwing his lightsaber from Rise of Skywalker in the brain, in the where he had to like make that choice and make that decision. And within the context of the video, I watched it and I was like, it gave me chills. I'm like, that's what that character is about, is that internal conflict. And when I sent it to Mary, we were both like, I'm getting choked up, and Mary was like, I'm crying. I'm crying. It's great.
But it's really true. I think it was a character I needed. I was thinking about, how many 6 years it's been since Force Awakens, that's kind of followed me in part, as I began this journey with Trek and Laurel, who again is not exactly a Kylo Ren character, but she definitely has a darkness to her and a flaw. And then I could get all, about the difference between how we treat flawed female characters and flawed male characters, and how I think we're making a lot of progress, but I think we can continue to make progress. So for me, I think the character, and then also I'm just a huge admirer of Adam Driver's work and the level of nuance that he can bring to a character. And I really feel that the character grew and benefited from the care that he gave the character. And so I had a very, very cathartic moment watching him throughout. And I really did take time to analyze in the mythology way, because in mythology, archetypes, they're all a part of us. Campbell says this, you know, like when you're watching a mythology, you're seeing different parts of yourself. So I was like, why was I so devastated by that loss? And it was like, there was a part of me that I felt was lost, or that was, you know, and yet also what I've reflected on more recently is that it's the choice to the light was so, like, I wanted it so badly for him because I want it so badly for me. I want to believe that I can choose the light. And that's the harder, more painful decision. And so that's just kind of, that's what I love about Star Wars, is that you can get that. And I think it's also there in Trek. And I think if I were to categorize differently, I'd say that, like, while Star Trek is mythology, it is also innately more fable, like fables, because there are these shorter vignettes. I mean, it was always a serialized, or not serialized, but a series. Now it's more serialized in Discovery and beyond. But I think that we get the same sort of emotional catharsis, but within these smaller stories of, like, you know, visiting these various planets, whereas like Star Wars has always been like this movie and all that sort of stuff, or like the expansion with Clone Wars, like these larger overall arcs leading to something we know is coming and playing with time. But I love them both. I would love to be a female Kylo Ren. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I keep saying that. I guess I just feel that, like, I love characters that are in the dark and the light. And it's not about when you turn to the light, like Rey has darkness in her too, obviously. And like, that's what I think is important that we keep coming back to in our storytelling, is that it's not good and bad. It's not black and white.
Even Luke. I mean, like all the characters of that world, and so many of the characters in Star Trek. I know our fan Kirk Coste, he was mentioning earlier, his favorite was Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And when I started to even study that character, who you think is like the most pure and kind of like a Captain America or a Superman type character,
right?
You can delve into his story and go, he is so flawed. Even on top of the surface level of like how he treats women and stuff, but like it's like his story is like he had a kid whom he abandoned, and like there's so much stuff that you can get into with even the most, you know, upstanding member of the Federation, Captain Kirk. Like that's the really interesting stuff I think that we're drawn to. Yeah.
Totally. And and I think we do lean on this a bit more in Trek, which is like, we have these ideals and these values. I was just talking with my dear friend, Dr. Erin McDonald on her Trek brunch, and our friend Samantha, we were talking about some Klingon Empire politics and stuff, and how it's all about honor. But that's what they're striving for. Let's be real. They're striving for that. And sometimes they get it. And that's been true always. And I think that that's what can really be illuminated. And what I think Trek, it tries to do so much, is be like, we're all in the same boat. We all have different things that we're good and bad at. But like, you know, no one's perfect. The Federation isn't perfect, but we have ideals, and we should strive for those ideals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right,
I feel like there's so much Kylo Ren stuff that you are still thinking out that I'm very interested to hear once you have everything kind of sorted out.
Yeah.
Because I also really, I like everything you're saying about Kylo Ren, and I think everybody has that little piece inside of them, whether you want to believe it or not. You know, we all have those struggles. It's just, you know, you're brave enough to recognize it inside yourself.
I think that's what makes that character so intriguing, because I feel like previously in the other trilogies, we've had characters who've either been on one side or the other, and by the time we get to them kind of crossing over to another side, the story kind of ends. Kylo Ren, like, we consistently kind of follow him, and he's back and forth all the time, and he's constantly having this like inner struggle, this inner monologue with himself and his grandfather, you know, in what he believes to be like a real connection to him. And he's always back and forth. And I think that is the thing that for me also makes him one of the more intriguing and interesting characters, is like, we all struggle with that sort of walking the fine line of, you know, like our life choices and what we want to do. And I think that's why that character resonates with a lot of people, maybe the most so out of any of the characters in the new sequel trilogy, because I think they kind of gave him the most layers, and I think a lot of that also just comes from Adam Driver and his performance.
Yeah,
like, he's so
for sure.
He's so electric.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen how John Oliver talks about Adam Driver in all of his episodes? It's amazing.
Yeah,
You
it's
mountain of a
he's
man.
like trampling unwashed
Oh man.
Oh my God. It is true.
So
and it's, I joke about saying female Kylo Ren, but I guess it's just like that level of boldness that he has as an actor. It's like, I'm so inspired to do that as much as possible. Like, I think I am a brainiac and I'm a perfectionist, and like all of that can sometimes get in my way. And like, there's a spontaneity that he allows himself, and a presence, and like that level of willingness to just be is like, I think what we all really strive for as actors and artists is to like, you know, and it doesn't mean that it's perfect every time. It just means that there's that willingness to try something, which again is so exciting to watch. Like, I remember one of my acting teachers in school said, one of the most fun things to do as an audience is to watch someone think. Like, it's just, if you feel that something, and I did, like, I thought about that a lot with Laurel too. Like I was saying, those eyes, if I felt I could communicate what Laurel was thinking through the movement of my eyes or the tilt of my head, I was like, I hopefully that can come through. And that she is also someone that, you know, particularly in the first season, is very much like, whose side am I on? Did I make the right choices? You know, what does it mean to be a Klingon? And she is too smart in her exposure to things that contradict what she's been taught to just be like, no, I'm just going to stay with this one opinion because, you know, and I think that's a true leader. That's what I hope, you know, we can see more in leadership, is someone who's willing to listen. And it doesn't mean that they step away from their beliefs. It's just that they're like, I understand that other people have beliefs that are different from mine, and there's a way to find some sort of compromise.
Yeah, for sure. So we only have a couple of minutes left, but someone, Tiny Chris Games in our chat room, asked this question, and I think it's very relevant to obviously a lot of other things that are happening in the world. And I know us three, we've talked a lot about, you know, the movie theater experience and like whether or not that's going to come back, how that's going to come back. And now, you know, there's things even outside of that itself. And I really did like this question because it mentions a little bit of like, you know, where we possibly are going to go with education in the future and how it relates to like our industry. And Tiny Chris Game asks, as a thespian, how does Mary feel with so many cities reducing funding to the arts, or in many cases, such as in Philadelphia, defunding them completely? Can theater and the arts recover from such widespread loss of support? And on top of that now, especially with like what's happening.
Yeah. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I know for me, what I would like to hope is I do have faith. I am trying to live in hope. I mean, we all, like, as much as it's, I'm being productive, do all this sort of stuff. Of course, there are days where I wake up and I'm like, what is going on? What are we going to do? But my hope is that we will come together, and there will be a time, certainly for theater. I think it, like we're saying, it's a recalibration, but I have faith that we will find ways. This is when humans get to show their true potential, is by, you know, being there for each other. And I'd like to believe we've already seen this. I know I've witnessed it, you know, firsthand with SAG-AFTRA Fund for COVID relief, and Actors Fund and everything, that there are people, like people who do have the money and the power, are trying to give back as much as possible. And, you know, tons of people are doing different fundraisers and things like that. And I'd like to believe that as we move forward, there will be more and more of that sort of stuff, given whatever circumstance it is, whether it is once theaters start reopening. So I do have a lot of hope and faith, and I definitely want to be an active participant in that. I think we're in this time, since there's so much that isn't opening up quite, or whatever it is. I'm definitely keeping my eyes and ears open for people being active about that. And I do hope that we can use the internet, and Twitter and Instagram and whatever else, you know, on the internet to reach out to each other. And I really want to have faith in the potential of human connection at this time, and coming together, and people asking for what they need. And I do think, you know, what we see is that we do turn towards art. Like you were saying, it's like we need that to still exist, whether it be on screen or on stage or anywhere in between. And who knows what, you know, I'm sure people are across the globe right now are coming up with ways to utilize Zoom and various other ways to tell stories still. And I think there will be an interim period where it will be a lot of kind of middle ground expression. But I'd like to think that we will get back to that. And I'm definitely, going to try and stay active and support as many of those, especially smaller theaters as possible. Yeah,
absolutely.
I love the message of hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like right now, I mean, we're learning it just analytically looking at how much stuff people are consuming nowadays. And I think more and more people who maybe are not such participants in our industry are realizing, man, I don't know what I would be doing right now if I didn't have, movies, television, music, all that sort of stuff to kind of keep me occupied and keep me motivated to get through a lot of the stuff that we're going through right now. So awesome.
Well, what they should be doing is looking at that same list Mary did with every Klingon episode ever and just knock it out.
Right?
Knock it out. You got the time? Now, of course, I want to go and watch all the non-Klingon episodes. That's like my, and of course, I've seen some non-Klingon ones.
Sure.
But
Awesome. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much.
I loved just being able to get your take on Kylo Ren because I think as a Star Wars fan, I'm like, I love meeting the person who like really gets that character because I think a lot of people are like, hey, he's all right. I'm like, no, man, but you don't get the depth of him. The depth of the character is so good. So thank you so much for being here. Guys, in the audience,
pleasure.
Go send Mary a bunch of love on Twitter. She's at Mary the Chief. Please tell her thank you for coming on. And we'd love to have you back. And I would actually love to talk about maybe like doing some sort of collaboration and talking about Kylo Ren. I think that'd be such a fun video for us.
I would love that. Awesome. I'm so down.
Awesome. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
We will be right back. We're going to be doing a board game, Blank Slate, coming right up right after these videos.